Hello, fellow UG parents. Thank you for joining me. My name is Paula Kagonyera, and I'm the founder of UG Parenting. Today, we're going to be talking about a somewhat sensitive subject. We're going to be talking about shaming as a way of disciplining. So I'll start by defining what shaming is. Shaming refers to calling attention to someone's actions or behaviors for the sole purpose of embarrassing them or making them feel bad so that they won't repeat that behavior. So your child breaks something and you call them a name, or what were you thinking? You're so stupid, things like that, for doing something wrong. Now, shaming is a very common thing, especially in our culture, in our African culture, in our Ugandan culture. I mentioned in my last video, we grew up hearing things like shame upon you or shame on you, and it was just very normal. But psychology has actually shown us that shaming is a very dangerous thing in disciplining. Shame is a very dangerous emotion. Unlike other emotions like fear or anger or even joy, shame doesn't have a facial expression or a physical expression. So when you're angry, you can scream, I'm so angry. When you're sad, you can cry. When you're happy, you smile. But when you feel shame, there's no outward expression of that emotion. It's a very silent, very secretive, very hidden emotion. And that's what makes it so dangerous for our psyche. Especially in a child's psyche. Children are just learning to express their emotions in a healthy way, in an acceptable way in society. And so dealing with an emotion like shame can be a very tricky subject, very dangerous thing, like muddy waters to wade through. So that's what we'll be discussing today. Now, I'll start by telling you some of the negative impacts of shaming children in an attempt to discipline them. Shaming, instead of communicating to the child that this action or this behavior that you've done is undesirable or it's bad or it's negative, shaming instead takes the focus off the action or the behavior and puts the focus on the person. So makes a person the bad person, or makes them feel like a failure, makes them feel like they'll never measure up. And especially in young children, they won't necessarily connect that to the behavior or to the specific thing they've done. They'll just feel in general, as a whole, I'm a horrible person, So it makes them put up walls and become defensive, It's like someone calls you out on something. The first thing you're going to do is become defensive immediately. Like, what? How dare you call me that? Or what do you, and you put up walls. That putting up walls or becoming defensive makes it hard for any discipline or any words of wisdom you might have to say to penetrate. So they won't receive your discipline. They won't receive your correction when you begin with shaming or when you shame them. So that's the first drawback of shaming and disciplining, is it makes it hard for children to receive the discipline or the correction. Another thing is shaming gives children a negative self-image. Like I said, when you shame a child for something they've done, you take the attention off what they've done or what they've said and put the attention on them. So then they begin to view themselves as a bad person, as an immoral person, as something wrong with me, and it becomes all about them, giving them a negative self-image. This, of course, leads to low self-esteem, and low self-esteem is just a snowball effect. They have trouble developing healthy relationships with other people. They have trouble expressing themselves, all that. So that's what shaming does. It gives children a negative self-image of themselves. Other words for shaming are criticizing, insulting, demeaning. So when we say shaming, we can't fathom or might not grasp the brevity of it. But when you use words like criticizing, demeaning, insulting, then you start to realize how damaging what we are doing to these children is, how big this topic is, and why we need to discuss it as parents. We're very quick to discipline our kids in front of others, not knowing that in and of itself is a form of shaming the kids. They do something and you're in company, or you have your family over and you berate them or you yell at them or you quarrel with them right in front of other people. You're embarrassing them. They're not focusing on what they've done and they're not receiving your disciplining. Instead, they're, I'm embarrassed, I'm so bad, I'm so horrible, they're developing that negative self-image. And so your discipline has not achieved its job. It's not done what it was intended to do. Instead, all you've done is damaged your child, you know? Another thing that shaming does is it teaches children that it is okay to bully others, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're shaming your children, is you're bullying them. So they'll turn around and go to school and insult others, criticize others, demean others, and they'll call your child a bully, and you'll be like, where did they learn this behavior, or why are they doing this, or how you but it's because they picked it up from you. You bullied them, and so they're bullying others. That's what shaming is. It's bullying. It's not disciplining. Shaming also crushes a child's self-expression. So when you shame a child for doing something, for saying something, they withdraw, they retreat, they go inwards. And so next time they feel like expressing themselves, especially around you, they'll think twice. They begin to doubt themselves, they become fearful, they become secretive, they start to avoid doing things around you or talking around you for fear of doing something wrong and being shamed again, because they don't want to experience that emotion of shame again. And so they start to hide from you. That's why, like some of us growing up in our homes, when our fathers would come home, we'd all run and disappear and hide, because our fathers had nothing but negative things to say, and we don't want that to hear those words, and we don't want that shame, so we just hide ourselves, And we grew up thinking that this is a normal way of being in an African home, but it's really not. If you stop and think about what you're doing to your child, damaging their psyche like that, it's not normal, and it's a cycle that we need to break. It's a cycle that needs to stop with this generation. The next generation of people doesn't need to be ashamed of expressing themselves, of speaking their minds, of being themselves around others for fear of being judged or being shamed or being abused, So yes, shaming crushes a child's self-expression. And children are naturally curious. That's how they learn. That's how they learn the world around them. That's how they, So if you crush that self-expression, you crush that curiosity, you're hindering them from learning, you're hindering them from growing, you're hindering them from blossoming into the beautiful person they were created to be. Research has also shown that shaming leads to isolation or withdrawal or a difficulty socializing with other people, because, like I said, shaming attacks a person instead of the behavior or the wrong thing that was done. And so when a person starts to feel like they're a horrible person, they don't want to socialize with other people, and so they become withdrawn, they become reclusive, and they become, and they have trouble developing social relationships with other people. They have trouble expressing themselves around other people. They have trouble maintaining friendships, and so that's another negative impact of shaming our children, is that we'll create people who have difficulty socializing and who have difficulty maintaining relationships with other people. So that's a little bit about what shaming does, or the negative impacts of shaming. Now I'm going to give you some tips, or some, not tips, but like things that you should do instead of shaming your kids, because it's easy for us to shame our kids. It's just right there. It's just, they do something and what were you thinking? Are you crazy? It's just easy. But if we arm ourselves with the right tools, we'll know how to correctly discipline our kids. So that's what I'm going to do, is arm you as parents with the right tools. Instead of shaming, try disciplining from a point of love. What does that look like? That looks like this: trying to understand why the child did what they did or said what they did, and then starting from there. So first thing you should do, instead of shaming a person, is try to find out the motive behind what they did. So your child said something hurtful, stop and ask them, what made you say that? Or why did you say that? And genuinely ask, not like, what were you thinking to say that? Criticizing type of, but ask them, what were you feeling when you said that? Because usually the words they say are motivated by feelings. So you want to uncover the feeling or the emotion behind what they said. What were you feeling when you said that? Were you angry? Were you sad? What is it that made you angry for you to say that? Oh, so and so hit you, and so you felt you had to call them a bad name. Well, instead of reacting that way, and then once you uncover the emotion or the motive or the feeling behind what they did or what they said, then you can start directing them towards how to express that in a healthy way. Ultimately, we want to teach our kids how to express their emotions in a healthy way, how to express themselves in a healthy way. That's how they'll develop long-lasting relationships. That's how they'll be able to socialize in a healthy way. So uncover the motive, the emotion, the whatever that led to their action or their words. And then the second thing you should do is focus on the misbehavior, on what they said or what they did, and not on them. So instead of being like, you're so rude, how can you say that? Try saying, what you said was rude. So how can we say it in a nicer way? What you said wasn't so nice. How can we say it in a nicer way? And this is after you've uncovered their feeling. I know you're feeling angry right now and you want to lash out and say something mean, but what are nicer words that we can use to express our anger? We need to give our kids the tools to be able to express themselves in a healthy way, or to be able to maintain relationships, because we're social creatures, and that's what we're training them for life anyways, is to socialize, is to be social creatures, is to navigate life in this society that we live in. So you arm them with the tools from when they're a child, so that they know next time I experience a negative emotion, trace the root of that negative emotion. Okay, it was because so-and-so did something to me or said something to me that didn't make me feel good. Now, how do I express this in a healthy way? How do I say this in a way that's not going to offend the other person, that's not going to, that's not going to sever this relationship? You arm them, you teach them that thought process so that they carry it well on into adulthood, So instead of shaming, find the motivation behind or what caused them to act or say or do what they did, and then teach them how to express their emotion, their anger, their whatever they're feeling in a healthy way. Focus on the action, on the misbehavior, on the words, on whatever it is that they did, and not on them. This goes with things like body shaming as well. If you're trying to teach your child healthy eating habits so that they'll be a healthy weight, shaming them and telling them you're so fat, you look horrible, things like that won't do that. Instead, what that makes them do is it makes them withdraw, makes them feel bad about themselves, it makes them embarrassed of who they are, and they'll turn to something that comforts them, because now they have all these bad feelings swirling around inside them and they look for comfort. And believe it or not, food is one of those comforting things. They'll turn to food to comfort them. Food doesn't judge me. Food doesn't make me feel bad about my body. Food just makes me feel good. So you shamed them in an effort to try to make them eat less or eat healthier, but instead you ended up pushing them towards the thing that you're trying to draw them away from. That we see what shaming does. So instead of body shaming kids who are, maybe struggling with their weight and you want to teach them to eat healthy, don't focus on their body. Focus instead on what eating right does. Focus instead on the benefits of eating right, of eating healthy. I want you to learn to eat right because it's healthier for you. I want you to learn to eat right to avoid, all these diseases or whatnot, or, so that you can feel good, so that you can have energy, things like that. And then teach them how to eat right, and then model eating right in front of them. You can't be like stuffing yourself with junk food while you're making them eat vegetables because you're a healthy weight and they're not. You have to model the right behavior. So yeah, that's it about shaming. If you have any questions or any comments or any concerns, please let me know. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.